Hey folks, welcome back. This is Joel, and in this video, we will continue with our discussion on SD-WAN. Um, in the previous video, I think you would have checked out the centralized control policy, and there were a few things which are still remaining with respect to the discussion on that particular topic. So I thought I'll make a quick video here. I don't think this will be a long one, a quicker one. So what we'll look into is let me just bring out my whiteboard here. Okay, so here you go. So this is our topology, right? And all right, so this is our topology over here. And let me just recap on whatever we have done till now, right? From a basic, hardware and the basic setup perspective, because there might be folks who are watching this video, only this video and not the rest of the series, right? So what we have done is we have R1 and R2, which is the headquarters, right? So this is basically my headquarters over here, and I have, a branch here. So this is like branch one. Let me use a different color. I have like branch 2 over here, right? The second branch, and the third one is over here, right? So we have the third branch. So this is what we have, and the orange color or the yellow one in the center here represents the MPLS transport, and the green one represents the internet transport, right? We have the complete end-to-end connectivity. In the previous video, we looked at the control policies mainly with respect to TLOC. What did we look into? We looked into like TLOC preference, I believe. We looked into OMP route preference. We looked into how you can restrict the tunnels from crossing the transports, right? We did that, and we also kind of used weights to show that you can send more traffic on one particular transport and less traffic on the other, right? So my setup is basically the same since the last video. Nothing has changed. It's just that I think after I recorded the previous video, I just went and let me just check that out. So I believe what I did was, after I recorded the previous video, I had enabled wait in the final stage of the previous lab. I just went and disabled that because I obviously want equal cost multipathing between any of the routes which are available, or any of the path, right? Otherwise, it's the same setup. I mean, you can keep that enabled as well. Wouldn't make a difference. But this is literally what we have. Um, and yeah, so let's start with today's or this particular session, which is going to be mainly on centralized control policy, but mainly talking on topologies, right? So we'll discuss on topologies. To do that, let me probably start with looking into my vManage. On vManage, let's go to monitor. Okay, it's here. Let's go to network. Probably let's pick one of the edge, which is, say, what do we pick? Let's pick BR3 probably. Let's pick BR3. So once we have BR3, if I scroll down here and let's go to my, so there is an interesting feature which we probably have not tested before. So that's something which we look into now. So we have looked into the traffic part, we have looked into the traffic simulation and all of that. But now I'll also show you that you can do a trace route from the vManage itself, right? So let's go click on trace route. So what I want to do is I want to trace route from my, say from where? From BR3 to BR2, right? So I'm already on BR3. The BR2 network is 172 dot, I believe, 17.2.10. I'm not sure if that IP is being used, but it should still work. VPN 10, obviously, and change this to gigabit 2.10, right? So now when I hit the start button, you can see the trace route is going to be initiated. Okay. Give it 1 second. All right, so that's the trace route, right? I see there are some NAs over here. Maybe let me run it again. Yeah, okay, now it's better. Right, so you can see the number of hops, right? Let me run it once again, because yeah, I think this looks much better, right? I think there were a bit of packet drops before. Anyway, so if you see here, because we have a full mesh topology right now, right? The trace route has 2 hops, right? So it first goes to the BR1 172.17.2.1, right, which is basically my BR1, right, this IP address over here, right, 172.17.2.1. So it goes here and then goes here. So basically you have two hops, right, which is fine. But what if I have a requirement wherein I want something like the traffic has to go to the headquarters and then go to the other, spoke. So what if you want like a hub to spoke kind of a topology, right? So that's what will be our first use case today, right? So what we are going to try is basically configure a setup where we will be able to do hub and spoke, right? This is what we are trying, right? So from anytime any of our spokes, so in our case what we'll do is we'll basically create these guys to be my spokes. I think there is no surprise there. So these guys will be my spokes, right? All the three sites, right, which we have, basically we have 101, we have 102, and we have 103, and this guy obviously will be the hub, which is the headquarters, right, which is site number 1 actually. So this guy will be the hub and the rest of the guys will be spokes. So you guys know how this hub to spoke basically work, right? So if I have to send some traffic between BR3 and BR2, it will now have to probably transcend to the hub and then go like this, right? So that's what we are trying to do, right? Awesome. So now that we have set up our context, let's start with the configuration. How can we achieve this? So we are obviously going to do this using centralized control policy, right? And now let me show you how we can do that, right? So just observe this, because keep this in mind, or maybe let me just open another tab, because once we complete this task, we'll be able to see the difference over here. Okay, so that's good. Now let's open up, probably let's go to my amazing policies here, open it in a new tab. So yeah, once this loads, yep, so there you go. This is the policy from my previous session. I have deactivated it, so that's cool. Do I want to probably add on to this? Maybe let me create a new one, right? Let me create a new one. So when I create this, it asks me, certain things, like for example, now that we are basically working based on hubs and spokes, it's better to create some sites based on that. So let's go to sites. Let's create a new site list, and I'm going to call this as site underscore hub, right? And what is the site number for hub? It's 1. So there you go. Add. Let's add one more, which is going to be your spokes. It's going to be site underscore spokes, and that's going to be 1012.103. 101-103. I think I made a mistake here. Okay, that looks good. So we have created all the sites which we need. Next, we could go and create T-locks, right? So we would need T-locks because what we are trying to do is we are trying to actually, let me create T-locks. I'll just explain what we are doing from a logics perspective once the policy, once we get to the policy, right? So let's go and create T-locks. When I'm saying T-locks, we are basically creating all the T-locks for my headquarters. Okay. So what are the T-locks on my headquarters? So I have my R1, which is 172.1, sorry, 172.16.0.11, if I'm not wrong. Sorry, .11. Yeah. The color is, one is basically MPLS, and the encapsulation is IPsec, and the preference. So what I'm going to do is though I'm doing hub and spoke, I still want my MPLS to be preferred than the internet, right? So I'm just making things more and more interesting now, right? So let's add preference as well. Let's add preference of 200 for my MPLS. Let's add one more T-lock, which is basically going to be the same IP. Only the difference is going to be public internet over here. Scroll down a bit here. There you go. Encap will be IPsec, and the preference is going to be what? 100, right? Because I want my MPLS to be preferred. Let's add more. Now we are doing R2. So R2, it's MPLS, encap is IPsec, and again, do I want to put 200 or, yep, so I want to use 200 because, like I said, I want the MPLS transfer to be preferred, irrespective it is R1 or R2, I want it to be preferred, right? And the last one is all about changing 11 to 12. MPLS, basically this is public internet, IPsec, and this is 100. Awesome. So we have everything we need. So we have created all the TLOCs needed, right? Looks good. Let's just verify. The TLOC IP should be correct, else we'll basically end up having black hole of traffic, right? So just pull this here. Yeah, 11, 11, 12, 12. Colors are correct. IPsec 200, 100, 200. Yep, that's good. So what else? I think that's good. So we can go to the next step, which is basically creating the topology or the policy here. So earlier we used the custom control, but this time we'll use hub and spoke. Now once we are on hub and spoke, what do we do next? We will, so here you have to define what are your hub sites, right? So in our case, we have created a hub site, which is over here, selected, add. Next, we'll go to the spoke sites. Let's select spokes and add. Awesome. So we are good with that. What else do we do? So once we are done with that, let's see what is this hub preferences, right? So here, what we can do is choose hub preferences and add prefix list as desired. Okay, do I want to do this? Probably. Let me prefer, like I was saying, let me prefer MPLS more than headquarters, right? So I don't want all hubs are equal, or do I want it? Let me just think. Probably let's advertise, let's remove this. Let's not keep all spoke sites correct to all hubs. Advertise hub TLOCs and let's select the TLOC here. I think that would this would be better. Yeah, I'll show you this how this actually matters once we are looking at the flow. But yeah, I think let's do this. So once done with that, let's save this. But just to give you an idea, what we did here is we created our hub sites, we created our spoke sites, and when we created a policy, we explicitly came and told this is what we these are going to be our hubs and these are going to be our spoke sites. Once we are done with that, we can save. Okay, we want a name, so we could say, I don't know, topology underscore hub underscore spoke. Okay, that's fine, not bad. Let's just take this description. Okay, so this is interesting. So that's not doing. Okay, I think that should be fine. Let's see. It's not allowing me. It's not allowing me to write as well. Maybe it got stuck. Okay, I just read it the whole thing. I don't see the error now. Let's save it. Okay, it's still coming up. Weird. All right, to fix this, let's go back and add the VPN, right? We want at the end of the day, the routes which are in VPN 0. So let's go back and probably add that as well. Let's cancel this. So okay, I don't think there's a way to add here. Let me cancel this and let's add it over here. I can go down here to the list, right? And I can add VPN. I don't know, I thought I had VPNs. Anyway, so let's add VPN 10. Okay, so once you're adding VPN 10, let's add this. There you go. Now we should be good, right? So good, awesome. So let's once we are done with this, let's go to the control policy. Now let's add the control policies. There is nothing to be selected here. Let's go here. Let's select hub and spoke, and here we are gonna have. Will this work? Yep, that's good. So let's select this here. Now you can select the VPN 10, right? And the hub. Let's select the hubs. Let's add this. In the spokes, let's select the spokes over here. Let's scroll down. There you go. Add, and yeah, let's not give all the hubs equal. Let's advertise the hub TLOCs here and save that. So once you save this, I think now it should work. Yep, there you go. So we have that. What else do we need to do here? So for I mean, I just want to show you guys how the configuration looks. So maybe let me just go down to next. I'm not sure if I can. So this, there's nothing to do here. This looks good. VPN 10. Is there? Okay, there is a preview here, right? So this is what I, okay, maybe I should write the name here. So here also, let me just mhm. Okay, so maybe I should have used a different name. Anyway, so let me use something like hub and spoke here. Let me just change this. Okay, so that's good. Just creating a name and let's preview. So this is what I wanted to show you how this actually works, right? I mean, we have been talking in terms of GUI, but functionally, how does this work, right? So for routes that are basically learned from, so this is basically the policy which will be pushed onto my vSmart, right? So you can see here at the bottom. So this is the site spokes out, right? So this is the control policy. But what is happening is, if you look at the top, the control policy, it basically tells that for the routes which are learned from the spokes, we are going to be changing the T-lock, right? So here you can see the T-lock is going to be changed, right? So for the routes which are basically learned from the matching routes which are learned from the spokes for the VPN 10, right? We are basically setting the T-lock to T-lock of headquarters, and that is why we created that list of T-lock of headquarters, right? So that's what is happening. Let me just save this and let me just deploy it and then explain to you from a diagram perspective as well, right? So where is this? This is my hub and spoke, right? So can I edit the name? I just want to edit the name. Okay, so that's just okay. That's fine. You just can edit it. All right, that's fine. That's fine. So let's go and activate this. So while this is getting activated, what I'll show you is that what we are trying to do is whenever use a different color, right? So whenever a route is basically learned, right? So where is my vSmart, right? My vSmart is over here. So my vSmart is here, right? So whenever the routes are basically learned for VPN 10, so you have VPN 10 behind every of these routers here. So whenever what we want to do is, whenever say branch 103 wants to talk to 102, we don't want these guys to talk directly like this, right? We don't want this to happen. Rather, we want the traffic to first go to the hub and then come back. So how do you do that? The vSmart will play an important role here, right? So when the vSmart is learning all the routes from everywhere, right? What it will do is for the routes which it is learning from the branches, it will just change the T-lock to the T-lock of the headquarters, right? And you guys know that T-lock basically is nothing but like a next stop, right? So if you're changing the T-lock, what will happen is now when R3 wants to talk to R2, or sorry, BR3 wants to talk to BR2, the next stop, earlier it was direct, that's why you had just two hops, but now the next stop is switched to headquarters. So it has to go like this and then come like this. Getting the point? So that's basically the trick which vSmart uses to establish this hub and spoke kind of a topology. Now let's go and check. So now if you go and check, we should have everything up. Okay, this is successfully installed, which means let's do our testing, right? So let's not come here. Let's go to probably open a new thing. Network. Let's go to BR3. Let's first check the OMP received routes, right? Let's see if something has changed up there. So let's go to real time. I go to real time. There you go, real time. And once I'm on the real time, I have to change this to OMP received routes. OMP received routes. And let do not filter, it's fine. I just want 172.17. So I want from BR3, I'm just trying to see the routes for BR2, right? So it's going to be 172.17.2.0. Yeah, here you go. So these are the routes for BR2, the branch BR2. And if I see on the right hand side, you can basically see, you should see the TLOC, right? So the TLOC IP, you see here, the TLOC has changed to the headquarters, right? Though these routes are basically concerning my BR2's routes, ideally I should have had the TLOC of BR2, but it has changed to the TLOC of headquarters, right? That's basically in line with what I was explaining earlier, right? Now let's change this to OMP received TLOCs, and out here, what do you see? Only TLOCs from the headquarters are seen, right? So each of the branches now basically gets, this is literally the TLOCs which you can see, right? So that's why we did that, the checkbox out there. So we are basically getting only the TLOCs from the hub, and I mean the 103 is basically the TLOC of this particular device itself, which is BR3. So it is visible, it's locally connected, right? This it is not receiving from anywhere, but you can see all the other TLOCs are gone. So now basically we are trying to say that now BR3 cannot talk directly to any of the branches, rather, or since it's a spoke, it has to talk to the hub for any kind of traffic. We can also see the tunnels. Let's see what would have happened on the tunnels. You see, the number of tunnels have gone down to just 4. Okay, so there are no other tunnels. So you have only tunnels going from BR3 to R1, R2, right? That's it. You don't have any other tunnels. In fact, I mean, you have 2 tunnels here. I'm pretty sure you'll have 2 more below. Here you go, right? You have 2 tunnels in the MPLS. So there you go. We don't even have any other direct tunnels to the other branches. We just have tunnels going to the headquarters, right? And that's exactly what we intend to do. Right now, we can go and test it. When I say test, let's do that. So how do we test? Let's go to troubleshooting. Let's simulate this. So just I mean, we'll do the trace route as well probably, but first let's do this part. Let's do the normal simulation, right? So here let's go to 2.10. Yep, so here it's going to be 17.2.10, and let's simulate. So there you go. You can see, though I'm trying to talk from BR3 to BR2, this is nothing but the BR2. You can see it is actually going to R2 and R1, right? So this is nothing but the system IP of R2 and R1. That is basically the headquarters, right? And it's obviously it's not trying the rest of the 2 because we have, remember, disabled the cross transport communication, right? That's why in the previous video, so that's why it's just talking MPLS to MPLS, or in fact we have given high preference to MPLS. Remember, while we were creating this particular policy, we gave high preference to MPLS, so it is taking only these 2 routes. Okay, now we can check this. Let's go one step back. Remember in the previous, I mean, just before starting the lab, we had done the trace route. Now we can do the trace. Yep, so let me click here. It's 172.17.2.10. Select VPN 10. When we hit here, we should see, oh sorry, I selected BR2. Let me change this to BR3. .10 and VPN 10. Yeah. So now we should see, you can see it's basically going to R1 or R2, right? So these are the 2 IPs for R1. It's trying to load balance, obviously, because we have R1 and R2 at the headquarters. But you see it's not directly going to this thing. Oh, sorry, I think I closed the previous one, but if you had seen in the previous one, you would have seen that it was directly going to this particular, that is BR2, because it was spoke to spoke, right? Communication was allowed before, but since now we have put this policy, every traffic first goes to the headquarters. From there it goes to the spoke, and from there to the destination. So you can see there are 3 hops now as compared to the 2 hops which you saw earlier. Awesome. So that is use case. Give me one sec. All right, so that's good. Let's move on to the next use case, which we want to show here. Before that, let me go and deactivate this particular policy because screw up our next configuration. So we can do that. And I click of a button. Here you go. Deactivate. Let's deactivate that. So while that gets deactivated, the next use case, let me just try to draw the next use case over here. Yeah, so that's successful. Okay, so let's draw the next use case. I believe it should be somewhere. Yep, so let me just clear the canvas. Sweet. So the second use case for that, let me just again get the image up. Okay, so here, what we want to do is we want to have a very interesting scenario where we want to move away from hub and spoke, right? We did hub and spoke earlier, right? That was our first use case. Let me use a different pen. Okay, so the second use case is basically something like a mesh region. Let's call it mesh region. So how we are doing this is um, we are going to probably have let's basically create regions, right? Let's create 2 regions. So the first region is going to be say um, it's going to have something like, let's say, this one. This is going to be region 1 along with the site one as well, right? So this is my region 1. Let me use a different color for my other 2 regions. So that's region 2, guys, here. Okay, so there you go. So that's region 2. So what we want to have at the end of the day is that we want to have the connection between region 1 and region 2. Region 1, we want to have connection between region 1 and we want to have connection between the region 2. But we don't want any kind of communication between these 2 regions. So we have, like I said, the blue ones basically, let's say this is region 1, right? And the second one, which is my green, let's call this as region 2, right? And I want to have communication only between the similar regions, right? This is completely different from hub and spoke, right? When hub and spoke, we had all traffic going through the hub and to the other branches, but here what we have done is we have created some kind of regions, maybe because of some GDPR, regulations, right? If someone comes and tells you, hey, I have 2 data centers and I want to have them communicate to each other, but I can't obviously send the data, say, out of the EU region, right? So that's where something of this sort would be used. Okay, great. So that being said, let's continue with our configuration. Right, pretty simple again. Let's start with going down to my. So I've deactivated that. That's fine. That's good. Let's go back to policies. We should be somewhere here. Right, so once I'm on the policy, next what do? So I go down to say add a policy, new policy. Not sure if I want some variables, but for now, yeah, I probably would need some variables because we are now creating regions, right? So so what I'll do is, let's do something fun. So let's go to the site and I will basically create a new site list and I'm going to call this sites for region, say, 1, right? So this is site for sites, all the sites for region 1, and that's basically going to be what? 1, 101, right? These are two sites which I want to have in my region 1, and my region 2 is gonna be, let me change this. Region 2 is 102 and 103. Sounds good. Let me add that. That being done, next, let's click on next. Let's go to the add topology. We have already seen the custom control in the previous videos. We have checked the hub and spoke. This is the last use case we'll check, which is the mesh. So click on mesh. So under the mesh, you have an option here to add your, well, before that, let's add our policy name, which is going to be, say, something like region, sorry, yeah, region mesh, for VPN 10, obviously. Okay, so that's the name of the policy. Let's add that as a description. This is obviously going to be VPN 10. Now we need to add the mesh regions here, right? So when you're adding the mesh regions, write a name for that. So we are going to say region 1 is going to have the site list which we have created, which is region 1, right? Now let's create one more. What's going to be the name for this? Region 2. And what are going to be the site list? Scroll down. Here you go. Once done, let's add it. So there you go. We have both of them, right? Perfect. Next. So once we are done with that, let's move on to the next step, I would say. So once we are here, do we have to do anything? Let's click on next. Next. And here we already have the, we probably will have to create a policy name. We'll call this as something like topo, but mesh, and then region. Right? Because this is the topology, which is the mesh region topology, right? Just creating a name for the policy, and let's save the policy. Okay, and we can go and activate this. I think I forgot to show you the preview of the policy, how it gets configured, but you guys can check it out when you do this. Just check or you can also check it out later on the vSmart, right? The configuration. All right, so that's good. Now what I'll do is, remember, prior to this, we had reset all the policies, which means, we had full topology, right? Full mesh topology where everyone is able to communicate to everyone. But now what we want to do is we want only region 1, or maybe look at this diagram. We want region 1 to talk to each other, whereas region 2 as well to talk to each other within the region. But nothing, we should not be able to talk between regions, right? That's our whole objective. Going back, let's see if we have succeeded. So we'll start with looking into the monitor. Go down to monitor. Let's go down to network. Let's probably pick R1 this time. I like R1. So once we are on R1, what do? We will check the OMP received routes probably. Let's go to real time. Right, and up here, let's check OMP received routes. There you go. And once that loads, no, do not filter. Right. So on R1, we should see all the routes which you have observed here. You should have received it only from where? You should have received it from site 101. Right. So let's check if that is true. Let's scroll to the right side. So we have site ID. Yep. So you can see the site ID over here, and you can see you don't see any routes coming from any 102 and 103. Right. You have only 101 everywhere. Right. That makes sense. So that's something which I wanted to show here. Is there anything which we want to see here? Other than that, okay, what are the subnets do we have? We have 172.17.1.0, 32.1.0. Yep, that all are valid subnets. Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's good. Now let's go and check on OMP TLOCs. Let's check TLOCs. Right? We should have received TLOCs also only from 101. Let's see. So these are all my local TLOCs, the first 4. They're all my local TLOCs coming in from my, or I'm checking on R1. So the first 2 are local TLOCs. It's okay to receive TLOC from R2 because, that's also part of my same region. But you see here the rest of the T-locks are coming from BR1-1 and BR1-2, which is again part of 101, region 101, or sorry, site 101, which is part of my region, right? So that's why you're getting, or you can see here the site ID. We are basically getting T-lock routes also only from site 101. We're not getting anything from anywhere else. Let's check the what else? Tunnels. Now even tunnels should be formed only with site 101, right? We shouldn't have with 103 and stuff. So you see here you have tunnels to only BR1 and BR1-1, BR1-2, right? For BR2, 3 and all of that, you see the status of the tunnels are down or it's not up, right? Because of the policy which we had created. Here also you see we have tunnels going only to BR1-1, BR1-2. Right? That makes sense. Probably we can also now check if we can ping. So let's go to, do we have this? Probably this is the switch. Is this the switch on the headquarters side? Yeah, this is the switch. So maybe let's do show IP route. Right, so you can see because this is a switch on the headquarters side over here, this is switch 2, right? You can either go to Windows and try to ping, or I'm trying to do it from switch 2 itself because I have the routes here. But you see on the switch 2 earlier, you know, probably I'm not sure if I have the output before. Okay, so here you see earlier before putting this policy, we had you know, the routes from BR2 and BR3, which is basically region 2, right? But now if I see here, I just have routes from region 1, which means I'll be able to ping my obviously the region 1, which is 172.17.1.10, right? But I'll not be able to ping something like, say, the region 2, sorry, region 2, right? This will not go through. Similarly will be the case for the you know, region 2's BR3 as well, right? We can also check on the other side. Maybe let's change this device to BR3. I mean, we are checking the region 2 now. So on region 2 as well, you can see you have only tunnels going up to what, BR. You have just two tunnels in total, one for public internet going to BR2, and then you have you know, one for MPLS, right? I mean, we have the MPLS here, and we don't have the cross tunnels because we have disabled them using the restrict keyword in the previous video. Ideally, if you have a full mesh, you know, you're supposed to have one more as well, but we have restricted it, that's why, right? Now let's use probably the troubleshooting tool and just have a look as well. Say from BR3 to where BR2, let's simulate the flows. Come here, let's select VPN 10 and say this. Okay, this can be, okay, that's fine. And let's select this, simulate flows. You should see that you have just two you know, paths, right? Yeah, these are basically the two paths going from BR3 to BR2. I mean, this doesn't much help with this thing, but you can see the paths. You will basically not be able to have probably any paths going to, say, 1.10, right? Right, see, you have a black hole. You don't have any connection to 1.10, or say, for example, the other side, which is 16.32 as well, right? It's a black hole. You don't have any connectivity, right? So that's what we did. That's basically everything which I wanted to show here. Just to summarize on what we did, let me use this. So in the first use case, we kind of went ahead and talked about how we can you know, establish this, which is the hub and spoke kind of a topology, right, where all the traffic basically will you know, go through, and if there are spokes, right, all the traffic will go through the headquarters. Basically the vSmart will, you know, plays a very important role here by you know, tinkering with the T-lock or the next hops, you know, as the routes are basically learned from the sites, right? So it changes the routes. As a result, the spokes will not be able to directly talk to each other, rather it has to go through the hub. In the mesh as well, in the mesh regions as well, what we did was we we first created two regions, which is region 1 and region 2. We inside each of the region, we also define what are the sites. In this case, it was site 1 and 101. For region 2, it was 102 and 103. Then we use the mesh, route policy, where what we told is that only the sites inside the region should be able to talk to each other. And these guys. So basically, what happens is the routes which are learned from VR3 will not be sent to region 1, right? The vSmart will block those routes from being learned on region 1. Rather, those routes will only be sent to VR2, right? So that's how only these both have connectivity. Similar will be the case for region 1 as well. Right, so these are a couple of use cases which I wanted to cover, and I think that basically covers the whole topics under the centralized control policy. To be more specific, we have done local control policy before, we have done central control policy now, and so that's it, guys, and watch out for more videos in the meantime. Bye.